Hey guys, and welcome back to EQ Planes, and today we'll be flying the Air Transat A321ceo from Calgary to Montreal. Now, I was definitely quite excited to take this flight today, as this would be my first time flying Air Transat ever, and also the first trip on our leg to Paris to unveil the A350F's new livery. Without further ado, let's start out with the check-in process at Air Transat. The process of check-in itself was relatively quick and painless. However, one thing that I would mention is that Air Transat does have a tendency to change your seats around, even if you did pay for them ahead of time, as that happened on 2 of the 3 flights we took with them, so definitely something to look out for. When it comes to baggage, it depends on what kind of economy ticket you purchase. If you do get the standard or flex version, then you do get 1 free checked bag. However, if you go with the budget or promo, then you will have to pay for any checked baggage. After heading through what's always a relatively quick security line through the international/Canada section of the terminal in Calgary, let's see what the international terminal has to offer. Now, the international section of the new terminal is certainly much better than the US section when it comes to window views. However, there's still plenty of double-layered glass, which is definitely something I'm not a fan of. It's currently used for both domestic flights within Canada and international flights out to other destinations, and it tends to usually be pretty calm. There are definitely more than enough places to eat and a lot more places to sit down next to your gate compared to the US section. However, with that being said, I still find myself going to the old domestic terminal quite often when I have a flight through this section, as there's just a better plane spotting there and a little bit more to do. It's also fairly easy to get to, as there's a little mini bus that runs between the international and all through the domestic side of Calgary's airport. Now let's head over to gate D82, where we got a pretty abysmal view of our aircraft parked at gate. However, luckily I was able to get a better shot of the aircraft from the road. Here we have the plane that we'll be flying today, Charlie Golf Echo Zulu Oscar, which is an Air Transat A321 in the Special Kids Class livery. It's 13 years old and was originally delivered to Aeroflot, where it flew with until 2019 when it went to Air Transat. But now, without further ado, let's get on board the flight and see what Air Transat has to offer on their A321ceo. When it comes to the layout on the aircraft, it features an all-economy configuration with 170 seats, for the exception of 2 premium seats at the front of the cabin, which are meant for crew rest only. Today, I'd be seated in seat 22A. Looking for something with a good wing and engine view, I would definitely recommend something a little bit further up. When it comes to my first impressions on the cabin, one of the things that immediately struck me was the slightly newer interior that you get on these A321s in terms of the side paneling and overhead bins, as this is on the newer end of A321ceos that were built. You could definitely tell that the seats were quite basic and pretty slim, and the aircraft was decently cleaned given the turnaround time it had. But I will get into more details on the seat when we're in the air. In the meantime, enjoy this taxi and takeoff from YYC. Now let's take a more detailed look at the Air Transat A321 seats. The seats were definitely pretty slimline and basic, being quite thin, and the legroom wasn't amazing in the back. I'm just a hair under 6'3" for reference, and it was pretty tight for me. However, the crew did notice that both me and my dad are on the tall side, with my dad being 6'4", and offered to move us to an extra legroom seat free of charge, which was definitely really nice of them. When it comes to the tray tables, they were a good height above the knee and quite large as well, with the seats also having a decent amount of recline to them. However, one thing that I will mention is there were no outlets on these seats either. Taking a look in the back seat pocket, here we have a Air Transat A321ceo safety card, along with their bistro menu, and air sickness bags were in there as well. Air Transat did offer a pretty decent selection of movies and TV shows through their in-flight entertainment provided through their app, along with a moving map as well. However, the moving map did seem to be a little confused to where we were going, as it had us going to either Toronto or Cuba the entire time, so definitely may need a little bit of an upgrade there. And here are the extra legroom seats that we got moved to up in 4A here. Definitely very nice of them to have noticed that and moved us up here. Was definitely made the flight a much more enjoyable experience. And if you're trying to get the optimal view of the engine and wing, I will say 4A is a little far for that. However, I think that the extra legroom is definitely a worthy sacrifice. When it comes to the loo review, it was definitely a fairly standard aircraft lavatory, a bit bigger than the ones you would normally find on the 737, but definitely not anything special either. Was fairly clean though, which is nice to see. And with that being said, enjoy this beautiful landing into Montreal, and be sure to stick around for my final thoughts on the ground. But now that we're back on the ground, let's talk about my final thoughts on Air Transat and their A321. Their A321 was definitely a fairly basic aircraft, and definitely a lot more basic than their A330s or A321neos would be. However, it does get the job done. This is now Air Transat's only flight into Calgary and serves to funnel people into Montreal for further connections onto Europe. They do definitely provide a pretty economical way of getting from Calgary to Europe, and they still tend to be the cheapest price. I would definitely consider taking the connection depending on what WestJet's direct flights were priced at. At this point in time, WestJet's direct flights were fairly expensive, so we decided to go with Air Transat. However, if the prices are similar, it's probably better to head on the direct one. But if you're an av geek like me and looking to try out Air Transat, or you haven't flown their A330s or A321s before, it's definitely a good way to go as well. Staff on this flight were also incredibly nice, which made a big difference as well. So yeah, overall it wasn't a bad experience on Air Transat at all, and I would definitely consider doing it again. But it depends on what you're looking for when it comes to flights from Calgary to Paris, as like I said, WestJet does have that direct option as well. But yeah, anyways, thank you guys for watching, and hope to see you guys back next time.